Welcome back to WCCF Talks Gaming, everyone. This is a very special episode now that the consoles are finally hitting the market. We started this show in the early days talking about rumors and speculation and everything, and well, the time for rumors and speculation is over because these things are coming to market from the time of recording in just a few days. However, two gentlemen on this podcast right now have had their hands all over and inside these consoles. Maybe inside, at least all over them. And the controllers, they've had full hands-on experience. They've been playing them. They've been enjoying them. Mostly. We'll see how much they like about it. Dave here, he's got the Xbox Series S. And Kai has been playing with the Series X and the PS5. Chris doesn't have anything. He's sitting on last-gen stuff. I'm
not even on last-gen stuff. I never used it.
Oh, there you go. See, I am... I'm behind Alessio too. We just want to know, we've got questions. They're going to have answers. We're going to kick things off with Dave to fill us in on his experience so far with the Xbox Series S. Tell us all about it, Dave.
Yeah, it's all right. I think it's the same thing I said in my review, like doubles down here. And that is that for the price, the console is really, really quite incredible. And that kind of has to be underscored there because... So, like price to performance standpoint in the console space, you know, you're not going to get anything else which guarantees you access to the next generation of gaming at this price. Like, you just won't. Having said all that, there are caveats, especially that, you know, so many games over the years have been upgraded for the Xbox One X and the Xbox Series S, despite being a next-gen system, it doesn't receive any of those benefits. So... There's trade-offs, there's toss-ups to be made. However, once you're sitting down with an actually Xbox Series S optimized game, the experience is really, really good. Even if you're playing on a 4K TV, there are some games which will actually play at native 4K, but for the most part, you'll have a very clean image quality at an incredibly cheap price. I do lament the lack of a disc drive, but for the most part, I think it's a really good console.
Mm-hmm. So what about the space, the storage space, of course?
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. That I have my concerns. I want to know what Dave's experience has been like so far with that.
It's a little frustrating, honestly. It's a little frustrating. And, you know, I should point out that only optimized games need to be on the internal storage. You can get like an external storage solution, which isn't an SSD for like your Xbox One games, or you don't care so much. If it's a smaller, more lightweight game that doesn't have much of a load time problem in the first place, then there's no reason why you shouldn't keep it on external hard drive. But if you're just using the internal, it fills up. And it's assuaged ever so slightly by the smart delivery service on Microsoft, and it's like games like Sea of Thieves on the Series X will be closer to like 50 gig, and on Series S it's actually 17.
Really?
Gears 5 on PC and Series X, you're going to look at like 70-ish gig, and then on Series S you're looking closer to like 45. So it's really not the worst thing in the world.
For both consoles.
The problem really comes in those games which aren't optimized and don't have that smart delivery. So we're looking at like Master Chief Collection, still an Xbox One game, not optimized right now, and we're looking at 100 gig install. Same with Destiny 2, and we could see that drastically come down once they are optimized. Destiny 2's optimization, I think, is coming in the next couple of days, and it'll be live by the time of launch. So who knows? That might get a little bit more manageable, but when you're looking at those really big games,
that is a concern. Now you mentioned an external storage device. How that's only going to be for older games, so the Xbox One.
So if you have like a standard external hard drive, you can as long as it's like a reasonable speed, you can put the older games on that, but the optimized games aren't going to fare so well off of the SSD.
So you would probably want those games to be on an SSD still, so like an external SSD, not really a
yes,
not a mechanical spinning rush drive.
No, exactly. And, you know, of course, there is the Western Digital expansion storage, which is available for Series X and S. But again, that is almost the price of a Series S.
So it's from Seagate, actually.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I knew Seagate had one. You know, that is an interesting thing, because if you're going to buy the One S and or the Series S. Sorry, listeners, if you bought the Series S and you wanted the extra storage, you would technically have more than you would with the X, but you're now going to spend more than the X would with that gets pretty tough.
Yeah.
That branding, it's getting
Yeah. Now you guys may know this.
When
I have a question about the storage, and you mentioned the smart delivery. Kai might know the answer to this because he's doing the X. If you have an X, because I know that we want to think everybody's got a 4K 120 hertz HDMI 2.1 TV, but
Like me.
yeah, rub it in, Alessia, rub it in. But what if you still have your older TV and you want the new consoles? If you got the X, do you have to go the full size install, or do they give you the option?
Can you go smart delivery?
Do they give you the option for the smaller smart delivery if you're okay with
Not
that?
that I've seen.
So if you've got
seems like it's just the one and done
That's
solution
terrible.
with this.
So if you've got the X, you've got to have the bigger install file. That's
atrocious.
It's kind of a bummer because think about it. If you don't want to buy the $250, I play a game at a time. The smaller space on the Series S doesn't really bother me. I don't play 15 different games. Chris has actually made fun of my Steam library because of how few games that I ever have installed at a time. But I've got gigabit internet, so I can delete it and download a whole game in 15, 20 minutes. It doesn't, by the time I go to the bathroom or make a cup of coffee.
Yeah, but that's why you should just install every game.
But I just think that would be a good thing. And maybe they update it in the future to give you the option to do that. That was the only question I had right there. But Chris, if you at $300, how do you feel about if that was your game console, if you bought just that to play games on?
I wouldn't, honestly.
You're not the one with it.
You just said Chris.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Ask me a question and then have a go at me for answering you.
It's been a long week.
Sit down. It's my turn now.
Dave, pick back up. I meant to ask Dave. I apologize.
Face palm.
So if I was buying into the Game Pass Ultimate deal to have the games playable across xCloud and Android and PC, etc., I would be satisfied, but I would be very conscious of the fact that I've gotten what I've paid for, Like, you're not gonna... I don't feel like this. I'm having like a super premium experience, especially not when I'm juggling for hard drive space. And that has been a problem, downloading and like recording footage from multiple games,
Oh, I didn't even think about the recording part.
Yeah. Like, I feel like I've uninstalled Gears 5 like 5 times now. But yeah.
That's unfortunate. That's not a next-gen experience.
No, I do feel like it's not the premium experience. However, when I look through the game library at the stuff on like Xbox Game Pass and I look at the quality of the optimized games I do sort of sit back and think, okay. Like, especially if you're getting like Xbox All Access, which I've talked about before, which I think is very good. But if you're getting Xbox All Access Game Pass subscription along with the Xbox Series S, I think it's real good. I think it's really good. Would I personally purchase a Series S over an X? Probably not.
That's fair enough. Now, I'd like to hear some more about the Series X. Kai, tell us about it. Tell us the upgrade. What do you get?
Just to interject a bit, the Xbox Series S has 364 usable storage space. So, gigabyte, of course. So it's
364
and the Series
gig.
X is just over double that. You're looking at, I think, 802 from what I read or recorded.
So, how much space does the operating system actually take on each? I'm sure it's the same, but...
So, my understanding is they're probably using a lot of that SSD space, especially on the Xbox consoles, as memory for the quick resume functionality.
Yes. It's a cache.
I was going to say that.
It's a dedicated reservation for cache. Or cache.
Cache?
Cache.
Who's got some quiche?
We don't do quiche.
It's for the experience of having that.
Yeah, I understand that, but is it really worth it?
as a console
When it
player may
works,
jump around.
yeah.
So yeah, I could see
Yeah.
that being a viable thing, especially. I haven't experienced it yet, but I know sometimes I jump around a lot, and if I could just hit a button and flip around, yeah.
I suppose it depends on the person. I don't really find myself splitting between one game and another that quickly. So yeah, it just seems something that I
Okay,
wouldn't use that much.
I'll give you a
But
scenario.
even if it's not like even if you're not literally using it to flick between games, it could be just that like, oh, it's getting really late, but I really want to play more, and there's no save point. Quick resume, turn the
Yeah.
console off,
Mhm.
come back the next day, and you're
What-
exactly in the same place.
I'll give you
Yeah,
a
I can
really good
understand that.
scenario. I'll give you a good one.
Mhm.
This is where it'll sell it to somebody. Okay,
Okay.
you're playing Dirt 5, but or are you? Are you going to get that on Xbox? I'm just going to use Dirt 5 as an example. You're playing Dirt 5 and you're enjoying yourself. Dave and I are loaded into waiting to play a round of Warzone. Or is it Warzone? Call of Duty? You know, we're sitting there and we're
Yeah,
like, hey, Chris, you want to jump in? We're about to jump into a round. Yeah. And then a few seconds, you're there, you're ready to go. It's not, hey, let me get it all loaded up and ready to go.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you play.
Let me finish this race, this tour.
Yeah, you can literally like pause it, stop that. It saves right there. You jump over, you join in, you play with us for a few minutes. We're all done. You go right back to where you were. And that's not a niche
so
scenario.
essentially, it's like alt tabbing between two games on your PC.
Yes.
Mhm.
Think of it like
Fair
that.
play.
Think of it like that. The game stays going, you go over to something else, and think about that with Fortnite, Warzone, all these different games that people are playing with groups of people, and you can kind of flip back and forth. I know I sound like marketing for Microsoft here, but that's a legitimate reason that would be useful. So
They should have just made it simple for me to understand. This is
It
the
is
alt
simple.
tab function.
it is simple.
They should have just
So
branded
here's
it
why
for me.
it doesn't work.
Oh, here we
So-
go. Here we go.
Yeah. So the concept is great on paper, but let's look at Warzone. That game, you have to be connected to the internet at all times, obviously. If you quick resume into it, it says, hey, your connection dropped. It kicks you back to the main menu. You have to do all that loading stuff all over again. Quick resume doesn't do anything for that. But if you did want to jump back into Dirt 5, yeah, quick resume works phenomenal there. But it's all
So
these
it is
internet connected
game-
titles that don't work great with quick resume.
Ah,
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's better game. Yeah, it depends on the game.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Monster
It's
Hunter
basically
World,
the ones that
I
are
mean, it
always
just,
connected.
yeah. Like Monster Hunter, it just says, hey, you're offline, it's switching you back to offline mode. You continue your quest from there. But anything that's online connected, especially Fortnite as well, you're pretty much just having to start the game all over again at that point.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's a shame. But
all right,
yeah.
I'm out.
I know. You're going to have to spend the extra 15 seconds loading back in.
But that's the thing; it's so fast. What if they gave you the option to just disable quick resume? I mean, I know that's a huge portion of the experience that they're selling, but if they give you the option to disable it and reclaim some of that storage space for just a couple indie games, even, especially on the smaller one, the Series S, the X, you got plenty of room. I guess I'm just. What else with the X?
You know what?
Oh.
You know what, Keith? I kind of was earlier. I was wishing for a way to disable quick resume because, as I mentioned, I was making a load time comparison video for Alessio,
Okay.
and I wanted to play Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and that game only really loads on the initial boot up. Like,
Mhm.
there's a big load screen when you initially start playing the game, and then when it's gone, it's like, oh, you never see a load screen again, really. And then just that initial boot up, I couldn't get it to show because it kept quick resuming from the menu, and I was like, so what I had to do is I had to actually start playing Ori on a different system. Like you can play it through the cloud or, of course, PC, and then when you load it back on console, it's like, oh, we need to sync. We'll restart the game to get your
yes.
saves in line. So it's there.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Now,
But,
Kai, I want to know
yeah,
more about the
the-
X.
Yeah. So my experience is I'm not so much of an Xbox player. I do enjoy the console. I just don't play that as much as PC and PS4. But this is a powerful machine. I mean, you're looking at across the board, just about every title you want to pick up is going to run better, not just higher resolution, but also better frame rates on a lot of these titles. And even Ori just got that massive patch where it adds in I think it renders at 6K 60, and like downsamples down to 4K, or you can flat out run it at 4K 120 on this Series X.
Mhm. But compared to the PS5,
hit me with some specifics on that. What do you want to know between the two?
well, let's start with the load times because, for example, I've seen yesterday there were some comparison videos that popped up on the web, and surprisingly, it seemed like actually some games were loading faster on the X, despite all we've heard, about the PS5's hard drive SSD.
Yes. They are definitely loading faster, but with a lot of these PS4 titles, they weren't very optimized to begin with. When you looked at PS4 versus Xbox One, just the standard versions, Xbox One was beating a lot of these titles. I think like Final Fantasy 15 was like 15, 20 seconds faster on the Xbox One. When you go to the Series X and the PS5, the Series X still loads faster, but the PS5 has a greater reduction percentage. Like I think you're looking at like 65% reduction versus like 40. I don't really remember the specifics. I was looking at some information through tweets this morning. I wish I had them saved so I could be accurate on that. And it's stuff like Marvel's Avengers also still loads a lot faster on the Series X than the PS4 backwards compatibility client on the PS5. But again, there's like a faster percentage reduction with the PS5's solid state.
Yeah, compared to the Xbox One X and PS4 Pro, you mean?
Yeah.
But that's interesting because, like I said, supposedly the PS5 hard drive SSD, sorry, is much faster, about twice as fast. But maybe the software part on Xbox somehow makes up for this. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to test.
Yeah, like that's something we're going to be looking at for, the next 6, 8 months, maybe even a year, just looking at comparisons and finding ways that developers are going to optimize for both SSDs.
Mm-hmm. And other than that, for example, of course, we know the PS5 has less teraflops, theoretical computing power than the Series X. But did you notice, for example, a clear, crisper image on the X, or higher native
Definitely
resolution?
yeah, I think the resolution that the X is putting out is phenomenal. Even like The Tourist, which was sent over as one of the titles to check out on the Series X, like running that at 4K, there wasn't any stair stepping. There was no aliasing that I could find on this image. Granted, it's it's an indie. It's a very specific art style with their voxels going on, but that game is absolutely beautiful on the Series X.
I believe the internal resolution for Tourist on X is 6K.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's why it's 4K on S as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. But on the other end, of course, actually, I think there are no ray traced games on the X, other than perhaps Watch Dogs Legion. But the PS5 has Spider-Man. So how does Spider-Man look on PS5 compared to PS4? Because you also played it on the last gen.
Yeah. Both games actually still look very good, but the image quality on the PS4, after running around with the fidelity mode on PS5, it just looks kind of muddy. Like there's a lot of the details to textures you lose. Clothing looks good, but you lose like the individual fabric density, the smaller details that you really only see in like screenshots. But in motion, Miles Morales like looks and runs great on both systems. And I spent most of the time playing Miles Morales on PS5 in their fidelity mode, which is their 4K 30 with ray tracing and all the other graphical enhancements. And it wasn't until like pretty much the day before my review went up that I finally started playing it in their performance mode. It gets rid of the ray tracing, but it essentially locks the game at 60 frames a second.
Mhm.
Is it worth it?
And yeah, like open world games, like I'm so used to 30 FPS that jump to 60, it makes all those other ones just feel kind of sluggish getting around. And when you have the mobility options of like swinging through town, running that at 60 frames a second just feels so much faster.
So you'd rather turn off all the extras and just get the speed out of that one? Is there a way to run it at a lower resolution but still keep everything on and keep the frame rate up?
Probably if you just drop the system resolution down to 1080p, because the PS5 doesn't support 1440 for whatever reason. But I haven't really gone through to check the frame rates on that per se.
I
Need to
bet they
that.
don't do it because they utilize if the system utilizes a hardware integer scaler, then it won't it probably detects 1440p as like an in-between resolution, so it just sticks to 4K or 1080p so that you when it goes from 10 like so that 1080p elements render out properly at 4K and 4K has a super sample down to 1080p so that it does it crisp. I'm just thinking of a hardware technical reason why it may
Rather
not
than
have
just trying to
1440p.
find, some weird in the middle thing.
Yeah, because then you get into interpolation, and then you get pixel crawl and all kinds of weird elements with stuff. But I was just wondering, with them starting to give us all these kind of options, me personally, I like the pretties, but I like the frame rate too. And if I have a 4K panel, I've do this on PC in the past, like with games that have real-time ray tracing, and I could run a game at 4K without it. But if I turned it on, personally, I was okay dropping it down to 1080p, turning on some anti-aliasing, and having the frame rate come back. That's how I played Control. Games like that, I wanted to keep the frame rates up, but also I wanted my level of detail. I just was wondering if with something like with Spooderman there, they gave us the option to have that high frame rate or high fidelity, or an option to have a lower resolution but maintain fidelity and frame rate. I just feel like they're going to start doing the options. That would be a really good somewhere in the middle compromise for the person who wants the look but also wants the frame rate, but is okay with giving up some resolution, because there are games where if I'm sitting across the room, I can tell that it's in 4K. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is one of those, and so I would imagine games like Spider-Man, you could tell the difference between 1080 and 4K, especially those big, long draw distance outdoor things. But for me on a TV, the 1080 to 4K is not as big of a deal as what some people fight it out to be like.
Yeah. Speaking of 1080p versus 4K, why does the Xbox Series X still render their dashboard at 1080p? Like it doesn't look crisp at all.
Really?
Like, the fonts just are so jagged, like scrolling through the UI on there.
Yeah, I'm guessing they want to save some system resources, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it was John Linneman, I want to say, was the guy that called it out. Just after that, I just couldn't stop seeing all the. I don't know. It's such a very minor thing to nitpick. Yeah.
Well, it's the text, it's the crisp, it's that experience, the interface. So I presume the PS5, however, when you kick it on, the interface is in full resolution.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
So all of the text is very clear. It's very crisp.
Actually, I think it's 4K HDR. It's also HDR, the UI.
Yeah. And they changed the UI up significantly with the PS5. Like, it's not their cross media bar. It's this very strange like home screen where you have a bar of like your 10 most recent games, and then you have to jump into your library to find anything else you want to play. Like, there's no folder support, which was huge for me on PS4 because I would want to have, hey, here's all my games that I need to review in one block. Here's my multiplayer stuff like Apex and Fortnite that I'm going to jump into pretty frequently. Here's my weird Japanese visual novels I have to play at 10 o'clock at night when my girlfriend's asleep. That kind of stuff.
Oh, we've all got them.
Oh, yeah.
Why you look at me like that, Dave?
He's talking about 13 Sentinels, not whatever you're on about.
I might have been speaking about 13 Sentinels.
Probably Samurai Kagura, for all I know.
So, but Kai, talk about the new kind of activities feature, I think, on the PS5, which is
Sorry.
Yeah. So right now, the only PS5 specific games that really support like the activities feature are going to be Miles Morales and Astro's Playroom. Astros is probably the best example because the activities feed there also has their little their guide videos, and that updates automatically. So if you're in Cooling Springs, you've collected 3 of the 4 little puzzle piece collectibles in there. You don't know where the 4th one is. You tap the PS button. It gives you a little indicator of, hey, here's your trophy percentage for this level. You log into that, and it just instantly loads up a small video showing you like 15 seconds of, hey, here's where where the collectible is. Here's how you get to it, and that's something that's going to be seen in a lot more games going forward. I know Demon Souls, they're advertising like 150 plus videos for their little activities feed, but it's also specific in-game activities. So it'll pop up like in Spider-Man. There's a couple like side quests that'll pop up in there, be like, hey, do you want to go visit Teo at the bodega? You click on that, it instantly takes you to that mission spot in the game. Same thing with if you want to go play another specific level in Astro's Playroom, you load up the game, hit the activities feed, and you select that mission. It takes you straight to that. Hopefully, Call of Duty will have that where you don't have to jump back to the main menu to do like campaign, multiplayer, zombies, etc. I'm hoping that there's an activities button where you just tap that and it takes you from the campaign to the multiplayer lobby. Obviously, I don't have the game yet, so I don't know specifically, but that's sort of what they're talking about with the activities on the PS5.
Quite interesting. So,
Like it's all these little snapshots of parts in the game you can jump straight to that I haven't seen on other titles yet.
that is pretty cool. Because, like, I know you're a trophy hunter, so if there's something you're having trouble with,
He's obsessed.
rather than
Yeah.
having
My-
to scour the internet.
My big question for you, Kai, is if you're not playing many PS5 games, is the console worth getting?
Well,
No, that's the
it's-
answer.
Yeah,
It's all right.
like right now, it's a fancy PS4 Pro, just like the Xbox Series X is a damn good Xbox One X 2.0, essentially. But I'm not seeing a whole lot with the PS5 that is unique to PS4 titles, except for 2 areas. You're gonna have much better frame rates for a lot of games, not just the ones that are supported with the more recent patches like God of War, Days Gone, those ones that Sony issued specific PS5 patches for.
Ghost
But
of
even titles,
Yeah.
but titles that were less than optimal on the PlayStation 4. I just did a small video that I posted on Twitter yesterday for Ease 9, which is coming out from NIS America sometime next year. That game would dip into like 15 frames a second just running around town. With the PS5, there's no optimization that you have to do on it. You just load it up, and that game's running at pretty close to, I think, like at least 40 frames a second running through town. And there's nothing I had to do for that. I just loaded up the game on the SSD, and away it went.
Nice.
Now, I'm going to ask a very
Hmm.
hard question of both of you guys. And it has to do with the fact that
Ooh.
pre-orders were so hard to get. They're going to be hard to get before the holidays. If you got one, if somebody pre-ordered one of these and they're getting it in a few days, are they going to be happy with their purchase most likely? Or do you think, I know you can't say they will or won't, but do you think they're more likely to be very happy with their purchase? And you think those who may have missed out on the pre-orders, are they really missing out a whole lot if they've got a current gen system? Or are they okay waiting until the spring?
So I think most people that are getting into the consoles this early know what they're getting into. I'm
That's
assuming
fair.
most people that threw down pre-orders are not like parents getting it for their kids. They're more than likely people buying them for themselves, at least the majority. And so, having said that, I think the people that roughly know what they're getting into with the Series S, they're getting into a system where they're going to be playing a lot of the games they already know right now, a lot more games in the future, and usually at like a minimum of 1080p or better. And it does all of that. It does all of that really, really well. And big 60 frames boosts for games like Sea of Thieves and stuff. I think those that know what they're getting into with the Series S are going to be really pleased.
It's good to hear. Kai, you got the big boys
I'm
over
kind of
there.
on this. I know I'm on the same boat as Dave. I mean, these people that put down the pre-orders for these consoles, they want to get the more powerful systems to enjoy these experiences, but they're mostly going to be playing stuff that they already have access to. So with like in the case of Watch Dogs Legion, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you're going to get a better experience on these systems, but you could probably get a much better experience if you had, a good gaming PC for these. With the PlayStation 5, there are some unique experiences out there at launch. Demon Souls being one of them, but most of the other stuff you're going to see will still run good, not great on PlayStation 4 by graphical comparisons, but you're still going to have a good experience with these systems. It's a really tough sell to say, hey, the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X, these are the must-buy holiday consoles. Go buy one for $1,000 from a scalper on Craigslist. I can't really say that.
I would never recommend. I have a hard stance that you should
it's not
never
that.
ever pay more than MSRP for anything.
Mhm.
I don't.
Yeah.
Just period. That's just
Like-
that's a hard stance I have.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're a kid where you play nothing but Fortnite, maybe the Series S isn't such a bad idea to try and talk your parents into getting, if they can get one, at Target or Walmart between now and Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's always the same with new consoles. I mean, at least these ones have the backward compatibility. Otherwise, in previous generations, early adopters were used to having nothing to play for months. So it's better in this regard, of course.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to take, as a parent and as somebody who heard this from their parents whenever I was growing up. Oh, the new game console's coming out? What? I throw all your old games out and we got to get all new ones again? Those days are gone.
Yeah, at least the backwards compatibility is there.
Well, I mean, that was my parents growing up. That was one of their biggest reserves of dropping any amount of money on a console was they're like, hey, we just bought you these other things and now they're useless. And now it's like, no, you can take my old box and just go put it towards the new box and all of my games are still there. So kudos to both sides for playing that card really well. And it also gives people coming into it, say if I bought a PlayStation 5 and I never had the PlayStation 4, now I've got access to a whole back catalog of things. So, while waiting for these new games, you've got a catalog. I think personally, I would be fine with any of these. I think an Xbox Series X and an S as a companion is a great setup to have if you're not a PC gamer. If you're not a PC gamer. So, I think that's a good one. I think PlayStation offers a compelling value here. I think the people that are punching each other in the face over which one is the better plastic box they're a little bit crazy. But I understand wanting to make sure if you're dropping $500, you want to make sure you're putting it in the right place for yourself. So if you don't care about Forza is not a selling factor.
Yeah. But I do have to say, like, if you're gonna pick one of these consoles for your kids for Christmas, get the Series S, get Game Pass Ultimate. You're set for a year.
That was my next question. So everybody seems to think the Series S is going to be the big long-term kind of success card in this one. And do you think it's going to hit kind of like what the Wii did? I mean, the Wii was the underpowered. It was the smaller one. I know it was a very different experience. So they're not. I'm not comparing the consoles to each other, but their place in the market. Big consoles, big powerhouses, but you got the cheap option. I mean,
I don't know
like
the
cheap
Wii.
option.
I suppose no, because the Wii had that. It had that unique factor of
But it was also
It
a lot
was
of people
unique.
it was more accessible too. Like it was
Yeah,
priced.
yeah.
It was
Yeah.
priced better for accessibility, all that jazz.
No,
Oh,
none of
Dave's
these things
disagreeing.
matters. Is the only thing that matters when it comes to a Nintendo console success.
Mario,
Zelda
First
launch
party.
title.
hands down.
Zelda launch title. If
Well,
you have a Zelda launch title, like on the Wii or the Switch, two of the best-selling consoles of all time,
I said long term.
you
Yeah,
could get one of the
no,
best-selling
I
consoles
said
of all time.
long term
for one-
success, not launch
I
success.
know you're the Nintendo man, Dave, but for once I actually disagree with you because the
Zelda
biggest
launch
game on the
title.
Wii were the
Wii Sports.
massively interactive ones. You've got your Wii Sports. You get. I mean,
Zelda
that came
launch
with
Twilight
the
Princess
console.
was very interactive, sir.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like all of those points are moot unless you also say, "Hey, Dave, look at 1-2 Switch. That's so much more
Yeah.
successful than Breath of the Wild." No.
Dave, but
The Wii
what
was
about,
just the Wii was cheap. The Wii had games that the family could all enjoy together.
Boom.
It
Yes,
was
I
that
know. Here's
perfect
the thing, though. Here's the
interactive
thing.
thing.
Here's the big question. Would it have even gained any sort of mainstream success past the launch window if there wasn't a Zelda launch title?
Probably.
I
They
feel
would've-
like Nintendo consoles especially need a really big burst of success right at the beginning, and Zelda launch title.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if they had
Dave,
waited
where was
like
that
they
Zelda
did,
launch title for the 3DS?
Yeah.
That's exactly why it struggled for so long. I mean, it had
Yep.
Ocarina of Time 3D, but
we already
What
done
about-
that
I
one,
just
like 4
the
times.
Wii U? What about the Wii U, Dave?
yeah.
exactly.
What about that?
No Zelda launch
Yeah.
title.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had Wind
No Zelda
Waker.
launch
How
title.
many months afterwards?
It was like a year after.
One of the
Yeah.
least. Yeah, I loved Wind Waker,
No
but it was
Zelda
not
launch
exactly
title.
the best
I
received.
can't remember what the launch titles were for the Wii U.
don't
Zombie
talk about the
U,
Wii U.
Nintendo Land. Pretty much it.
We don't talk about the
Oh,
Wii U.
New Super Mario Brothers U.
Mm.
Yeah, I've just loaded it up. Yeah, they had an Epic Mickey too.
I'm sorry, we've lost
Oh, yeah.
Chris. We have lost Chris.
Oh man,
His
that was a
camera-
weird launch too. Like you had
Really?
one random
No, you
Batman game,
haven't.
you had Mass Effect, you had Assassin's
Yeah.
Creed.
I'm just
That was
looking
a
at that
weird
now.
launch.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, do we have any closing words since Dave has to depart for some ulterior business?
Well, I think there is one aspect that we haven't covered yet, but I think it's perhaps one of the biggest differences between the two consoles, which is, of course, the controller.
Black or white? Oh,
The controllers.
Mm.
Run down the
how-
controllers, Kai. Tell
Yeah.
us your hands-on impressions, because Dave's only had the Xbox one. Let's hear about your experience with the controllers.
So the Xbox One is very definitively an Xbox controller. I mean, form factor, just about everything is identical to what you saw on the Xbox One, the Xbox One X. They did add a dedicated share button, so it is a lot easier to share like video clips or take screenshots with it. The triggers themselves did get redesigned, so they have a lot more tactile feel to them. There's a bit more resistance. They also have some very nice little button grooves on there, so your fingers kind of like lock in there with the little divots. But this is very much the same controller that you're used to for the past 5 years.
Can I ask a quick question before you go any further?
Okay.
This is my favorite controller I've ever used. Can I use this on the new Xbox? This is the Razer
Yes.
Wolverine
Yes.
Ultimate. And it'll work with the new games?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm done.
The
And what about
only
the PS5,
controller.
huh?
Well, you want to play Mortal Kombat with a fight stick? No, can't do that. You want to play Mortal Kombat on your Xbox with a fight stick? Totally. That's the weird thing, is everything you own, minus the Kinect, will work on the Xbox One. Or Xbox Series X, rather.
There you go. You messed it up. You got your turn.
No. Still
But-
works on the Xbox One.
What about the DualSense?
So that is probably my favorite part of the next-gen experience. And that's not just speaking as a Sony fanboy. This is someone that wants to see new controllers, and frankly, I'm kind of tired of seeing the Xbox controller for 10 years.
Yeah.
The DualSense. All right. So top to bottom, start from the top. You have the new the adaptive triggers. They're not used in a lot of games yet. Miles Morales is fairly limited on the functionality, but with Astro's Playroom, you can actually get a lot more of the physical response out of these triggers. So rather than just like the standard, the usual one-directional pull on these, they do have resistive motors in there. So in the case of Astro's Playroom, they have a little mini game where you're like testing out like thrusters on a jetpack. The triggers themselves will have a varying level intensity. So at the deeper you pull on the trigger, the tighter that it resists your touch on it. So you're having to pull the trigger a little bit tighter for it to engage. Same thing with like the little spring suits they have in Cooling Springs. Like the first little bit, there's no resistance, just like when you're squishing in a spring. But the deeper you go, then it starts getting more intense for the rest of the pull.
Do like a trigger on a gun? Can you feel like the trip of the where you hit the hairpin? Where would that be something?
There is like a very visible like a thunk to the trigger pull on that.
That's cool.
I'm kind of hoping that Activision is able to do more of that with Call of Duty. Like, I want to see every gun have a different style of trigger pull, but
How does
I won't
it affect
know for
battery?
another week on that one.
It sounds like it would kill the battery.
So I've been getting around 7 to 10 hours out of the DualSense. Once you add in the triggers as well as the haptic rumble on it, it does drop the battery life quite a bit, down to probably about 6 hours, I would say. Still much better than the DualShock 4 was, that's for sure. But
well, it's got a built-in battery, so you're not having to swap anything, or you just plug it in and let it charge. And you can charge it while you play still.
Yeah, I mean, the PS5 does have 2 USB ports on the front. One is a Type-C, one's a Type-A. So you can just plug it into one of those to play while you charge. It's not like the Xbox controller where if you have some AA, you can just hot swap those and keep playing. You are going to have to plug your DualSense in, unfortunately, unless you somehow have multiple of them.
Mm-hmm. But, what I want to know is they've made a big deal about the controller being able to, convey the sense of different surfaces. Like, for example, in Astro's Playroom, there are some icy parts, I think, where you feel the slippery surface of ice. So is that correct, actually? Is that something you experienced?
Yeah, so that's actually in a combination of a little bit of the resistance in the triggers, and more so in the rumble motors that are in there. So as Astro takes a step, you are going to feel a difference in each step. So when you're on glass or like a harder surface, it is going to be more of a solid thunk between each step. With the like sand, for example, there's a little bit more crunch. It's a lighter feel, and you can feel the two as you're like running back and forth between these different surfaces.
Yeah, sounds great. I look forward to trying it.
Yeah. The other big thing is with the Tempest audio tech, which is essentially Sony's answer to Dolby Atmos in there. Only supports headphones at launch. Like, you can't get any of the Tempest audio out of your existing surround sound system. Like, Sony is making headphones the big focus for their console this time around.
That's interesting.
But every headset that you own should be able to work with it. I've tested a few different wireless headphones that I had. They're all ones that still have to use dongles, so I'm not able to use a Bluetooth headset and get all that functionality. But like between HyperX's headsets, Astros, they worked great for the Tempest audio tech. And like I mentioned in my review, one of the great stages to kind of check that out was in Astro's Playroom. They have their SSD Speedway that's showcasing all the loading tricks for the PlayStation 5. But the opening parts of that level has a whole bunch of just like flying cars whizzing past you. And I was telling Aaron out to check this out, but if you just like load that level, close your eyes, you can hear the cars whizzing past you, not just straight on, but there is like a little bit of there's height to the audio, so you can hear cars that are like going past you from above and kind of from below as well.
Mhm. So it's kind of three-dimensional 3D audio.
Cool.
They say it's like 4-dimensional. I don't know how that's gonna really work.
Yeah, I
but
don't. Yeah,
Time
then
and
it's
space.
5D chess.
You hear sounds before they happen.
Sometimes you hear them
Returning to that-
afterwards when it lags.
Yeah.
4D.
Or if you're
let's
playing Call of
go.
Duty, you never hear them at all.
To be fair, those sounds travel through time at the speed of regular time.
Oh,
Yes.
Lord.
Ooh, what?
4D.
Well,
I'm
guys,
just
we
now
have
starting
anything
to get
else on
some
our way
weird
out?
idea of 5D
I think we're
chess
good.
from Star Trek.
I think we're good.
Good deal. Good deal. Good times. Good times. All right, guys. Thank you all for joining in with us. We got some games to play. We'll catch you all in the next one. Say bye, everyone.
Get your games.
See ya.
Later, guys. Have some Shin Megami
Bye,
Tensei.
everyone.